So Richie and I here are training to help expand the lexicon that we can share as Tai Chi push hands, competitive Tai Chi push hands players. So I just want a lexicon that we can share as Tai Chi push hands, competitive Tai Chi push hands players. So I just want to go over some of the stuff that we went over today in our training. Let's put this camera over here so that all of us together can be able to experiment. So one of the things we were talking about was differentiating between range, meaning that this is body to body range, and that there's a collection of techniques, infinite techniques, but there's really a collection that you can choose from here. We have close range, and there's a collection of techniques you could choose from here. We have mid-range, obviously a collection of techniques we could choose from here. We have long distance range, playing here, a lot of times on the wrists, collection of techniques. And you can think of that as coming into long range punching. Again, all this is being pulled from real martial arts. We have kicking range and the techniques that we might do from here. And then we have outside of range that you would have to jump into range, etc. So just being able to differentiate that there are techniques, drills that we'll have that apply here that don't apply here, but techniques that apply here that can bridge you to here or bridge you to a place of greater distance and potentially safety, maybe not, depending on what you're doing, who you're playing. So those are some of the ideas. Any other ideas we went over?
Certain techniques that only work in or you might need to dissect based on
techniques per range. So I think that was the big thing. The big thing is range. So I guess the core of this video is range, and also we talked about shapes and the idea of if you create a shape for too long, that someone can ride that shape, especially with folks who are less experienced in Tai Chi push hands. You'll find them creating these Tai Chi style shapes, or maybe not even consciously doing it, but they're creating shapes and just holding on to those shapes rather than making a decision. Everything that you're doing in Tai Chi push hands from a competitive standpoint is to uproot the opponent. So as fast as you possibly can do that. That doesn't mean you moving fast, but it means that your decisions have to be made in a strategic and consistent way towards your goal. So we were talking about if you find yourself holding a posture like here, and if you find an opponent doing that, really take advantage of that. And before you even mention it to the opponent, try to see if you can find it as a pattern in your play with an opponent. Like, they keep doing this, I'm gonna keep taking advantage of that. And if you want your opponent to get better because they're a training partner, then talk about it, have a little conversation around it so that they recognize that they have a pattern and that they can make a change and do something about it. And also to recognize that the patterns aren't necessarily bad things, they're just things you need to be aware of, because all of these postures and positions can be turned into an advantage. But if you aren't aware of that, then they can become a massive disadvantage. So every technique has its own pros and cons, and that's for all techniques. There is no ultimate technique, except the technique of love. So again, if you're coming to these postures, and also recognizing how this, especially if you do other martial arts outside of Tai Chi, really valuable for you to recognize that, hey, I might be in a position like this, but this is a pendulum block in boxing. Okay, cool, now I know I'm doing my pendulum block. Okay, great, so how can I use that pendulum block in my Tai Chi push hands, which is essentially giving me a place to play in a controlled manner with certain grappling and space control techniques? Can I use that to create some space, like the chicken wing in boxing, like creating that little bit of space so you can throw a punch in? Can you do that and create this little arm drag position? Can you go from here to an underhook? Can you use that to manipulate the upper body? All these questions of what can I do with any particular position. We found this position to be one that we needed to talk about today. So we talked about it, and there's always options. And anything else? Am I missing anything else?
Maybe just that putting contact on different.
Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, we were talking also about once you start making the decisions, if you're like, hey, okay, I found this posture that let's talk about this position. So we found this position a lot when we were playing today, and so if you want to make a decision out of that, the idea is that if you are not making your opponent think about themselves, they're thinking about you and how to move you, and in the most expansive strategic way. Articulation of that concept is that the opponent's body is my body. So I, as a player, go into playing with an opponent to connect to them, to make their body mine, so that I have domain or dominance or control over the duo of us as a single piece, so I can make them move as I would move my own body. So that is a concept. I'm not saying that I'm dominant over another human being. It's the concept of space control and how expansive is my awareness into someone else, into another object, which can be a person. So with that in mind and dialing it back, it's like, okay, well, I want this person to think about themselves so that I can have a look at what they're doing rather than them making me think about myself and trying to defend. If you're on the defensive, you're like, oh, okay, you're essentially playing. If you're ideally you're playing a game of chess, where you can get into a position where you can make them start thinking about pressure that you're giving them, because that pressure, if they feel it and they don't want to lose their footing, they're going to have to readjust their body. The second you get someone to start thinking about readjusting their body, that's when you can start inputting more data into them to get them to take that step, to uproot, to get the throw, to get them down to the ground, to do a submission, etc. So again, this game that we're playing of push hands is allowing you to increase your sensitivity and recognize what little bits of data you're putting into an opponent to get them to make a decision. So when we're playing, let's just play freestyle for a second. So he's looking around, and ideally, like for this game right now, we'll play fixed step. So we're not even going to move around right now, where the first person to step loses. So he's getting me to think about here. I'm already thinking about what he's doing. And so now one of us has to make a decision of what we want the other person to do. And if you see players who have less experience, they'll take longer times in certain positions. Longer times to say, oh, okay, I can change the direction here. So you just want to get yourself to a place where you can make the decisions more rapidly. And that doesn't mean moving faster. That means recognizing that from here to here, just these little moves that I did, when they're done with intention, are completely different positions, each one of these. And every frame in between, like my coach Josh Waitskin would say, he talks about it in frames, like 24 frames a second for film, or 30 frames a second for video, etc. How many frames can you go, how much can you turn your camera into slow motion for your own perception? So how many frames can you see versus the other person? And if you can see more frames, you can make greater, more strategic decisions, because you can recognize the generation of a technique. And one of our teammates, Trevor Cohen, used to say that the great thing about Taiji, when we used to go and play judo players at Oishi's in Tribeca, New York, that would frustrate the judo players is that as they're going for their technique, that's when our technique happens. So the Taiji technique is happening in between the space of point A to point B of the judo player's technique. And that's not to say that there aren't incredibly high-level judo players, nor is that to say that every Tai Chi player has the capacity to do that. It all depends on the martial artist. Any high-level martial artist can see more. So what this is a system for you to train yourself to see more in a repeatable fashion. And that's what we're doing here. And I love you guys. This is Richie Storrs, phenomenal teacher at the Chin Bing Institute as well. Great push hands player. I'm so happy to have him. We're here in LA. And I love you guys. We'll see you soon. If you ever have a thought, question, or idea, please reach out on my YouTube channel or Instagram at JSTaichi. I'll repost this video on there too. Love you. Bye.